Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, June 14th. It's 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and you are here live with the Retail Doctor. Always takes a little bit for the camera to connect and Facebook to tell all of you I'm out here and all of that stuff. So, hey, Heidi, you get the award of the day because you are first and you know how it all works. So, thanks for joining in there from North Carolina. I really appreciate it, Heidi. And for the rest of you who are just tuning in, it always works best if you tell me where you're joining in from in the world, because all I see is a name and I don't see your city or state, unless it's Stacy, who I can always count on. By the way, Stacy, I enjoyed your talking about belting the other day, and not singing, but you were talking about how to use a belt in your apparel store up there at Caroline on Main and Lifestyles of Saratoga. Whew, I got all that. Nietzsche, I'm going to be answering your questions this morning. You guys are killing me, though, because I prepare for my broadcast at like 7:30, and I type them all out, and I do all my stuff, and then I go and take my shower and eat breakfast and all that. And then I come back at about a quarter of, and I'm doing everything. And I thought, I should probably check and see if anyone added questions, because a lot of you submitted. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. And so I come back, and then there's 8 more questions. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going live in a minute. So thanks for doing that. I really appreciate that, because ultimately I only have something to do if you give it to me. Which brings me to another point that several of you just put situations on my feed. Those aren't questions. A question actually says, should I do this or should I do that? But just to tell me a situation isn't helpful for me. And if it's not your story, then please share something that is your story, because then I can make it personal, and that's what it's about. And if you like what I have to say, give me some thumbs up and give me some love, because the Facebook algorithm has been wanky lately. There are days that I end up getting like reach of 150,000, and then there's other days it's only 1,000. I'm like, followers, help me out here. So give me some thumbs up, give me some love, and I will do my best to tell you what works and what doesn't. Hey, Chris from England, I'm glad you're here. Liani on the other side of the world, glad you're there from Western Australia. Christine from Carmel, you're up early this morning. That's sweet. Robert from Dallas. All right, there you go. Lewis from Downers Grove, Illinois. It always sticks to me, because I always think that's where the play Our Town came from. And I don't know if it is the author or if that's what's featured in it, but I always think of Downers Grove. So there you go. Oh, Nisha. Thanks for that, Nisha, because I have one of my assistants is Elisa, and it's spelled a different way, and it's only taken me, we've been working together 6 months, and I think I finally have it down. So pronunciation is very important. So there you go. I hope I get that right when I go to your question here in a minute. So all of you jumping in and telling me you're there, 75 people watching in just the first few minutes. That's fabulous. Thanks for that. If you have any questions that I don't get to, you can certainly type them in as you're watching this, and I will try to scroll back up and get them and highlight them. And if I don't, I typically will try to get back to you as well. Glad you like the shirt, Ted Baker. I'm also wearing my necklace that I got when I was in New Zealand, which is made of jade, which is just to remind you that every purchase has a story. There's a story about the actual item, but there's always the story about why somebody bought it. And we have to remind ourselves that in brick and mortar retailing, because a lot of times we think it's all about the item. And you know what? Most items these days, 80% of your competitors carry in some form or other, and there's always somebody cheaper online. So unless you're really interested in me and why I'm buying it on this day, in that case, it was down in Auckland, in New Zealand, where I was doing a big speech and my big trip there. And I always remember the hospitality of the New Zealanders were fabulous. And so the same thing, do you remember that people are not just a purchase? What they are is a story. And make sure that you are remarkable enough that the story they carry back, which is who they bought it and where they did, and I can get into that with this, but you're not tuning in to hear my story on this today, but also the item itself. And also, I just wanted to remind you that today is Flag Day, and Flag Day is rooted in the day that Continental Congress said, this is what the flag of the United States will look like. And why I think that's so important, we realize, is it was not about each state going its own way. Each state already had their own flags. What it was coming together and being stronger to build consensus around the idea that we are stronger together than being alone. And I think some people take Flag Day as this thing about being individuals. I think it is the exact opposite. It is about coming together and realizing we are stronger together than we are apart. And an awful lot of the first time I had to work with consensus, where we all come to the agreement. I had to work in the nonprofit business and then also in the business world. And consensus is painful and it's tough and it's easier to say because I said so. But I'm guaranteeing you that until we get to a consensus-driven model where we say we have to listen to everybody and find our way through it, I think we're going to struggle. And that's going to be the same thing in business as in local government. It's going to be in nonprofits, the same thing. We have to find a way to find consensus we all agree on. And otherwise, I think it's just going to be really hard for most of us to move forward. Hey, glad you're all joining in. And I wish I could talk to you all personally, but you're not tuning in for me to be talking about my shirt and everything. You're talking to find out about what it is that you have on your mind today. Someone is asking a question. How do I handle paying back rent? You're going to have to negotiate that with your leaseholder, and remember that they're in the same place. If everybody stops paying rent, then none of it works. So it's always a time to talk to them, see if they can't prorate it over the next 12 months or your next lease. The question becomes, how do you approach your landlord? And I say it's the same thing as a vendor. They're your partner in success. Let's get to your questions because you have a lot of them this morning. So let's go in and see what we got. Lauren, Washington State is requiring retail in Seattle to limit their occupancy to 15% and limit customers' time in the store to 30 minutes. My store is so small, we're only allowed one person at a time at Pike's Place Market. Wow, so that's tough. I know the crowd's there. Can form a line of people getting in. I'd like to ask people to limit their time to 20 minutes or 30 minutes if no one is waiting. How do you suggest letting customers know their 20 or 30 minutes time is up? I hate the idea of having to ask someone to limit their time. Lauren, it's a numbers game in retail that the more people come in, it's like a restaurant, right? You've got to get so many seatings. I can't imagine let somebody look in my store for 30 minutes if you have a small store. I would say 15, and I would probably end up get some egg timers or get a turn one and either have some kind of a game with it or do something where you hand it to them and try to have fun with it. But the reality is a numbers game. So if it's really that small, I can't imagine anyone getting 30 minutes in there. It's that idea of, are we going to charge people for browsing? And quite simply, we are in a place where we are going to have to find our way through it. And Pike's Place has always been a big market. And also realize that hopefully we'll get back to normal with more people being able to come into the store on a regular basis. So I hope that helps. I have two together here. Amy says customers are much more hostile about wearing masks now. We've been open for 3 weeks, loud and confrontational. All this despite all the signs in stores, sandwich boards, and down the village, all of them nearby. Difficult to handle customers. It makes it awkward and tough. I get that. And Steve, how do you diffuse anger after telling customers to wear a mask per the governor, which I agree with a lot of people on edge here? There is no easy answer. I don't want to spend the rest of the morning talking about masks. It sucks. It's horrible. There's no national leadership on this, even within our own states. People are saying we recommend wearing a mask where social distancing isn't possible. HEB is relaxing their requirement of customers wearing them because of pushback. I think if you can say, if it's the right decision to help reduce the spread of the terrible virus, it's great. If it's the wrong decision, it's really kind of a small inconvenience. I totally get that people are on different sides of it. You could probably ask people to sign a waiver then if they're not willing to wear a mask, that if they get it, that they're not going to hold you harmful. But as I've said from the start, this is not the job for a minimum wage retailer. And I just think you have to model the right behavior in your store. I know that's not easy. And I know people are passionate on both sides, but quite simply, we got enough work to do. And without national direction on this and without somebody saying, this is it. And I get it. Someone's going to come slamming on me, but our governor says it. I'm in New York State, and in New York State, they're requiring it. And you know what? 90% of the people are responding and doing it right. I talked to a local merchant here, and she says somebody who doesn't have a mask, She says, can I get you in and out? If you're not going to wear a mask, can I get you in and out quickly? And please make sure you wear it the next time because it makes my customers uncomfortable. She can't be everywhere. And, people are saying, if you don't wear a mask, I'm not coming. It's a quagmire. There is no right answer. But I certainly don't want to end up becoming the mask police and getting into it with customers, because we've seen people are on edge. There's no two ways about it. But quite simply, I think you have to figure out what's right for you and do what's right for you. But if you are getting that much pushback in it, I think you realize there was this article in the Washington Post that said, I think we have to acknowledge that, things have changed certainly in the last few weeks. And I'm not going to jump in here and, have people who are going to be taking me on, either side. Please. There are more important things for us to worry about than a mask, for God's sake, right now. The whole state of the economy, the state of retail, the state of your mind, the state of how do we go through and put back together what is broken in a new and better way. That's what I would rather you spend your time with asking me about, because it just sucks. I feel for you. I wish I had the answer. There is no good answer. All right. Mini rant. Olio Olive Oil says, we suffered a major fire last November. I remember that you missed Christmas. That was terrible. Now the building is gutted and everything's at a standstill. The landlord says we'll be in by the end of September, but I'm skeptical. We're in a small town and there's no stores available to accommodate my business. We can't afford another holiday season. How do I hold on from going elsewhere? How long do I hold on from going elsewhere? I don't know the answer to that. It's your frustration level. You've been out since November. Admittedly, if you had to go out, at least you're out for the 3 of the worst months of 2020. But I would say now is a time for you to pivot and look at how do you go virtual. And I'm going to talk about that in a post I'm going to share tonight about what we need to end up doing. And so I hope that you'll take some tips from that. But quite simply, do you really need a physical location in a town that there's no availability? As far as I think your question is, how long do I put up with a landlord and realize that the landlord is listening to his construction crews? And if anyone's ever remodeled a house like I have several times, you understand that whatever they tell you, add 2 or 3 months, and realistically, that's going to bring you to November. And can you afford to be closed then? I would be pivoting right now and looking at how do you go through and become a virtual store. I hope that helps. Deborah, sales techniques when offering a personal shopper service over the phone for curbside pickup. Deborah, the days of personal shopping over the phone, that's very 1990s. I'm also talking about this tonight in my post. You need to be doing video calls through FaceTime or through Zoom, and a call on the phone is just not the same. So I would encourage you to embrace video tools over that, because at that point you can actually show and tell versus tell and sell, which I think is just really hard. Deborah, sales technique, you already said that. Erica, any advice for forecasting for holiday buying? I've said this before, Erica, that I don't know how old your store is, but you're going to have to take it on a week-by-week basis. Nordstrom canceled all their summer orders, and they've cut way back on the fall with the idea they put their vendors on notice that it's going to be much tighter turnarounds. I would encourage you to do the same. Jamie says, landlord says he's putting a for lease sign. Oh, we're back to leases again for my building this week. I'm the only tenant. My lease runs through September, and I couldn't commit to renewing at this point. I told him that sales were too questionable for he to sign another lease. He never negotiated on rent. I think you know what my answer is going to be. Do I say something as soon as how do I communicate this to my customers? Do I have to say something as soon as they puts the lease up? The reality is he doesn't want you for whatever reason, and now is the time you take charge of your business. So go through and start spotting out other locations and get a new lease. And you can't have this question mark. Is the same thing we were talking about earlier with the olive oil store, that you've got to take the action. You're going to have to be able to do it. And whatever you do, make sure you get everything in writing so he doesn't think you're breaking the lease or doing something else. And that's a note to all of you that you can't be casual about getting customer information. So anytime someone comes onto your Facebook page and likes or does something you want to go through and you want to get them to go through and encourage them to like your page, wherever you can, getting them to sign up for your newsletter on the site, whatever you can do, get those customers information, because as we've seen, you never know when you might be locked down and unable to even open your doors. I hope that helps. Janny says, is it wise to hire a customer as a part-time employee since you already kind of know them, they're familiar with the merchandise, or is that looking for trouble? Janny, I think that you know my answer, which is quite simply, no, I would not hire someone because they were a customer. There's a very different relationship between you selling something to somebody and you paying them a paycheck. And so I would encourage you to go through and really say, is this the best person for the job, or is this just convenient because I'm kind of lazy? And if you're really honest, it usually comes down to, yeah, I'm kind of being lazy because I'm telling myself they know everything, and quite simply they don't. And what they'll probably do is give you a harder time. Any good books to read on being a boss? Yeah, the Retail Doctor's Guide to Growing Your Business. I thought I had one on my counter here, but I don't. You can go to retaildoc.com, click shop, click that button, and for I think it's $26.10, including shipping through the US and Canada, you can find out my thoughts on how to manage your employees better. Top fan Roberta says, our business district's annual sidewalk sales always scheduled for 5 days at the end of July. How do we make it work with social distancing and with so much less merchandise to put on sale? So Roberta, that's again, it's another one of, we're in the near term oddball parts of retail right now. I would encourage you to have some kind of a video, have some kind of a QR code that people can snap and maybe take them live into the store. I would put up a TV in your front windows and have somebody actively showing items, maybe putting a speaker there so that you bring the best of your indoor store outside. And ultimately, then how do you bring that onto the web is also what I'll be talking about tonight. Bridget says, is it crazy to want to open or start a retail business during this pandemic? Bridget, I can tell you that there's always people that will tell you it's a great time who have no knowledge and they're just, build it and they will come. And I can tell you that they have squandered more fortunes opening restaurants because they didn't know the protocols. They didn't understand that sanitation was huge, floor drains, scheduling your percentages of labor to cost of goods. And I do not, if that's you, this is not the time to do it. The razor edge of margins is never been tighter that could really cut you up. But if you know your stuff and you know that there's a need in your community and you've done your marketing plan and your business plan, and you talk to your banker and your numbers make sense, I say go for it. Also, if you know absolutely nothing about how to do it, what would your very first step be? So Bridget, I think you've answered your question. This would be crazy if you don't even know what you're doing. So go work for somebody and see if they'll take you on, or see if you could do something with a co-venture with someone who's existing. This is not the time to just say, I had an idea, I want to do it. That's fine if you want to do that from the book business and sell to your friends. It is not fine if you're investing cold hard money that you took a lot of time and effort to achieve. Mandy, what is the thought about customers treating employees terribly? I had a doozy and I called him and took my staff aside and asked him to not come back until he can treat my staff with respect. I don't need people spreading hate and don't need their money. Do you support having your staff back over customers that are, I'm not going to say the word here. If I'm wrong on that, I would love your perspective. So Mandy, I don't believe the customer is always right. I've never believed the customer is always right. I've had people treat me poorly. In fact, I don't know if I've told this story, but here you go. Picture a young Bob, go back 50 years. No, not 50. All right, go back 40 years, 45. I'm working in downtown Los Angeles. I was doing really well. The Nunn Bush Shoe Shop and the Glendale Galleria, they're closing a store because it's not doing as well. And they want me to come down and run it. So I come down and I've been there a week and they're making their numbers and it's all going well. And one day this guy opens the door, takes off his shoe, throws it at me and says, these shoes are, and I won't tell you the word, but it wasn't good. And what are you going to do about it? And I picked up the shoe and I threw it back at him. And I said, when you want to treat me with respect, you're at welcome in this store. And the guy, what? And so he shut the door and then he put his shoes back on and he goes, can I enter? And I go, yeah. And we had a conversation, but you cannot treat me like I'm a dog. So I would respect that, Mandy. And you know what? People are going to talk about it and they're going to say X number of things on social media. At the end of the day, all you have is respect for your crew and respecting your crew. And if you know that that person was over the line, then telling them I don't want your business is fine. I'm perfectly all right with that. I've ended up firing customers of my own. So, Nisha, I hope I got that right this time. In the beauty and skincare service and retail setting, what's the best method as an owner to start to step back from being on the floor, providing beauty services in order to focus on our online store and social platforms as a face of the company? I have talented staff, but feel when the owner is available, it's hard to refer clients to our new talent. That all comes back to training. If you may say that you have talented staff, but if they can't connect with a customer and build rapport, then they probably aren't able to do it and they're not comfortable doing it, which is why everybody asked to talk to you. So look in the mirror. The reason why you're running into this is your training program. Training is something we do, not something we did. It's not a box you check off, and it's not believing your own press that our employees are great. You know what? I tell you what, give me $75 and I'll mystery shop your company and I'll tell you how great your customers are. And if you're willing to do that, send an email to bob@retaildoc.com, but be prepared that what you think is great customer service is little more than, hi, do you have this stuff? Yeah, I have this stuff. It's over there. Anything else? No, that's it. It's not great customer service. That's little more than going into that bowling alley thing where you put $1 in and the claw comes down and picks something up and drops it in the chute. That is not going to make you money, and it's going to cost you an awful lot. And I would also, when I read your post here, I thought you were going to say to work on the business, but instead you're saying to work on social media platforms. If that's making you money, that's great. But make sure that your focus is on how do I improve conversions, how do I improve margins, and how do I get a jaded customer to come back. That's what your job as store owner is, not to be a face on Facebook. Smith, our main marketing push used to be for our big events and classes. That's where we sell the bigger sewing machines, I'm sure. Now that we can't have large class events, it was mentioned at a staff meeting to rebrand ourselves during this time. What suggestions do you have to freshen up our branding? I don't know your store, so I don't know what that even means, Smith. To rebrand yourself, what, away from large classes and event? If you're a sewing store, you're still going to be a sewing store. So ultimately, know why you exist, come up with a reason you exist, which is not to make a profit. Are you here to make the world a better place? Are you here to you have to narrow it down and get consensus on one thing that will drive you, so that if something ends up happening in the world and somebody asks, do you support this? You don't have to like panic. You know, well, of course, this is who we are. So I hope that helps. I'm going to take a quick look at your questions here because I am at end of time. If you like what I have to say, you don't always like what I have to say, at least you know I'm honest. Give me some thumbs up and give me some love, because otherwise the algorithm does not work and we don't end up getting much there. So Martina asks, what's a common percentage for a shop owner to take in a consignment agreement? I don't work with consignment stores. I work with full price merchandise. So I'm sure that's easily something you could find online. Great. Yeah, exactly. With Disney requiring masks and Universal, that certainly helps. I certainly get that. And now you're all jumping in on masks, so I'm not going to go there. So there you go. Vera. I don't have time to read all of these, so there you go. A simple question always works best than asking me a bunch of, don't give me a paragraph, ask me a quick question. So there you go. I'm going to wrap up today by, again, talking about today is Flag Day. It's a day of coming together, and we are stronger when we are looking out for everybody and bringing everybody to the table, and ultimately finding that way that we are looking for consensus, not for being able to say, well, I don't agree, and that's the way it's going to be. We have to find a way to find consensus if we are ever to put our differences together, because we are all different. Make no mistake, we are all different, but we can embrace everybody's differentness, and that's what makes us stronger, by coming together. And with that, I'm going to leave it with you on Flag Day. If you like what I have to say, certainly give me some love. Check out retaildoc.com. And if you're still searching for why you're not making enough money, and you're still telling me how hard it is, then realize you've got to have that dialogue with yourself, because garbage in, garbage out. And if that's all you're putting in is the news and everything else, you're never going to get to the place where you're really doing the hard work, which is How do I get more customers to come back more often? How do I end up getting new product that resonates with them? And how do I actually sell the merchandise and not clerk it? That's probably going to take you looking at salesrx.com, which is my online retail sales training program, where for $195 a month for up to 5 users, you can actually learn how to sell your merchandise instead of telling me about how something else is a distraction and you're going off in all these different ways that don't make you money. I'm going to always bring you back to your job is to create an exceptional experience for your employees, which then creates an exceptional experience for customers. That's how I built brands for the last 30 years. That's how you can do it if you're willing to do that hard work. If not, you're going to be on Facebook liking and commenting and all sorts of other things that really aren't going to make you more money. So today, on Flag Day, realize that the choice to be successful is yours. Are you willing to step up and bring it to a we and actually make the world better in retail? Because that's what I'm trying to do. Until the next time, when I at least get 5 questions, make sure they're a question for me on Saturday, and I chat with you on Sunday mornings. Do good work, and remember, in hope, I am fearless. Thanks so much. Bye.